Well, hi there. This is Caleb Jones, and this is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. And we're here to talk about Alpha Male 2.0 stuff. Primarily, your success with women in your life, in terms of your long-term life. Now, Alpha Male 2.0. Oh, I forgot to do my intro. My intro is, I am Caleb Jones. This is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. I make a high income, location-independent income while dating multiple attractive women, and I show men like you how to do the same thing. Alpha Male 2.0 is different from every other dating and or relationship model in that it is a long-term model. And that's why I'm very proud of my Alpha Male lifestyle structures and content, because it's one of the few models that I have seen, probably the only model I've seen, that lasts the rest of your life. I have said many times, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, any man from age 18 to 79 can follow the Alpha Male 2.0 relationship dating model and do that until you are at least 79 years old. There are men in their 70s living the Alpha Male 2.0 lifestyle. I get these guys at my seminars all the time. They're wonderful. Love these guys. There are guys that are 18, 19, 20 years old doing Alpha Male 2.0. And those guys who are 18, 19, 20 years old can live the Alpha Male 2.0 lifestyle until their 80s. Now, once you're 80, I have no easy answers for you. As of yet, I have not talked to anyone who is living the Alpha Male 2.0 lifestyle post age 79. So I really don't know. I'm only 50, so you need to give me a few more decades. Then I'll have some more information on how to handle your 80s and 90s. Because frankly, the reason for that is 80s is when your body really starts to shut down. No matter how healthy you are and how hard you work, your body just starts to say, when you hit your 80s, all right, I think I'm done. And it starts, shutting down. And there's not much you can do about that. So that's when things sort of change. But we're talking from age 18 well into your late 70s. So I don't care how old you are. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you can live this lifestyle for decades and decades and decades because it covers all the relationship types. FBs, which is casual, MLTRs, which is dating, OLTR, which is a girlfriend, OLTR wife, if you want to settle down and move in with a woman. Okay, you can follow all those different models depending what age you are and what you want in life. I have mentioned before that there are other men on the internet who teach dating models, dating techniques, relationship models. And the problem with most of these guys is that it works for these guys for a while, and then it doesn't work. I could name many names. I'm not going to name any, but I could name many names, not just one or two, but many, who in their 20s and early 30s lived the pickup artist lifestyle or the player lifestyle, went around the world and banged lots of girls. And then they had some kind of mental breakdown in their mid-30s, and then they went and got monogamous, which means their marriages imploded and they got divorced and they went through all kinds of problems. Or they took the God pill and they became hardcore Christians and stopped having sex. Or various other things where they had all kinds of explosions. And the reason these men went through this is because they dated women without thinking long-term. Players say, I want to fuck a lot of girls, so they fuck a lot of girls. They don't say, well, wait a minute, well, I want to fuck a lot of girls at bars and clubs when I'm 47 years old. They don't think through that. They just say, I want to fuck a lot of girls, and then they just go do it. On the other side, beta males, more traditional guys say, I want to get married and have kids. They don't think to themselves, well, do I really want to be having sex with just one woman for the next 57 fucking years of my life? Do I really want that? Is that something I'm even capable of? Is that something that she's capable of? What is the actual divorce rate in my country? They don't think through any of that. They don't think long term. They just think, I want this right now, so I'm going to do this right now. They don't think long term. Both the pickup artists, player guys, the alpha male types, and the more beta male types or the more traditional right-wingish types. No one is thinking long term, and that's why men have such a nightmare of a time with the relationships and dating lives they have with women. No one outside the Alpha Male 2.0 world is thinking long term. You want this now. How does that integrate into my life, into my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, my 60s, my 70s? What I do is I force yourself to ask those questions. So if you're 32 years old and you want whatever your goals are, you want to bang 100 women, okay? Or you want 2 or 3 FBs and 1 MLTR or whatever. What I tell you to do is I say, great, go do that. But then how does that plug into your long-term plan? Are you going to want that when you're 40, 50, 60, 70? If you're 47 years old and you want to get married, right, and have kids or whatever, Great, you can do that as long as it's an OLTR marriage, not a traditional monogamous marriage. Great, but then how are you going to make that work long term? Once you've been married for 18 years and you want to fuck other women, because you will, because you're a man, that's how you're wired, how are you going to work that in? How are you going to handle that? Think long term. So what you need to do is no matter what you want in terms of your woman life right now, you have to plug that in to the rest of your life all the way to at least age 79. When I'm 79, how is this going to work? Will this work? Will I have to change? Will I have to go through several phases? Here's another question that men are terrible at. Do you want kids? I've talked about this many times. That's a big decision you have to make, and that has long-term ramifications for your life. You don't just have kids because your wife or girlfriend wants kids. That's what most men do. Instead, you say, do I want kids? If the answer is yes, when do I want them? How many do I want? Where in the world will I be living when I have them? How much money will it cost to raise them? How do I get that money? How do I make sure the woman I have these kids with is a quality woman? How do I handle when I get divorced from that woman? Not if, when I break up with that woman. If I get divorced or break up with that woman before the kids turn 18, how do I handle that? You have to ask all these questions. And unfortunately, as usual, men don't ask any of these goddamn questions. They just say, okay, I'll have a kid. Or worst case, they get a woman pregnant by accident, okay, in quotes. I'm not sure how accidental it is if you're coming inside women left and right without condoms when you know they're on birth control, but okay. They get women pregnant by accident and then they have to figure it out. No, that certainly isn't thinking long term. Two things about having kids. Number one, you should not have children unless your desire to be a dad and have kids is on a scale from 1 to 10 is an 8 or higher. An 8 or higher. That means if I say, do you want kids? You say, oh my God, yes, I'm so excited to be a dad. I can't wait to have kids. That's an 8 or higher. The vast majority of the time when I ask men, do you want kids? The answer I get is, well, I don't know. Okay, that's not 8. Okay, that's a 5 or a 6 or a 3. You are not ready to have kids if the answer to the question of do you want kids is like, well, that's no. Don't have kids. Please, for the love of God, do not have children. Number two, and I've done entire YouTube videos about this. I've written entire articles about this. If you plan on staying in the Western world for the rest of your life, which is stupid, you shouldn't do that. But if you want to be stupid and stay in the collapsing USA or cuckoo Canada or suicidal Europe or authoritarian Australia for the rest of your life, and you want to have kids in those environments, you better be a multi-millionaire and or make a high 6-figure income or a 7-figure income, because that's the only way you'll be able to afford to have those kids and to raise them correctly. After 35 plus years of voting for the lesser of two evils, the United States and other Western cultures have destroyed their currency, destroyed their economies, and now having children is ridiculously expensive. This is not the 1950s where any guy could have kids and make it work. Today, in the Western world, having children is for very high-income, wealthy men. It is not for typical average guys. Unless you want to move to an underdeveloped or developing country and stay there the rest of your life and have kids there. If you want to move to Vietnam or Colombia or, Bolivia or Paraguay or something and have babies there and live there, raise your kids there, that's different because it's a lot cheaper to raise kids in those environments. Do the Western world? There you go. You may not like this. This is true. I'm right about this. But my point is getting off the topic of kids. You have to make long-term decisions about everything you do regardless of your age. So if you're a young guy and you want to bang a lot of girls, great. Go bang a lot of girls if you're 26. If that's your goal, please go do that. Most men have to go through a crazy phase where they go have sex with lots of chicks. I certainly had to go through that phase myself right after my divorce many, many years ago. Most men have to go through that phase. Good. But that is a phase, not a lifestyle. One of the first YouTube videos I ever did, a bazillion years ago, was the challenge with the pickup artist lifestyle. Pickup artist skills are valid and you need them. Okay, but the pickup artist lifestyle, the problem with that lifestyle, it only applies to two segments of men. A, men under the age of 35, and B, men over the age of 35 who just got out of a long-term divorce or a long-term live-in relationship and need to go sow their wild oats for a little bit because of what they missed out on. In both cases, those are temporary conditions, right? Are you going to be under the age of 35 forever? No. As I've said 10,000 times, once you hit your mid-30s or late 30s, you're going to want something other than banging lots of girls. If you're over the age of 35, you just got to have a long-term marriage, a long-term living relationship, and you want to go bang a bunch of 19-year-olds, great. Are you going to want to do that forever? No, you want to do that for a few years, and then you're going to get back to normalcy. You'll return to the mean, as they say in economics. So these are both temporary conditions. So what will you do after that? Okay? You can't just say, oh no. You sit down and you map it out on paper. What will you do? How do you integrate that into your long-term future? When I got divorced, this is what I did. When I got divorced a billion years ago, 2007, so 15 plus years ago, whatever, I said, okay, now that I'm out of my 9-year marriage and I was actually monogamous, I didn't cheat, so I literally had sex with one woman for 9 years. Oh my God, kill me. I get heart palpitations by saying that. Thank God it was a long time ago. Now I'm going to go get laid. I'm going to go have sex the way I want to have sex with multiple very attractive women long-term, where I can date 2, 3, 4, 5 women all at once. They all know I'm having sex with other women and they stay with me anyway. And I went ahead and did that. Now, I knew then, I said, I know I'm not going to want to do this forever. Right now, I said back then, I am only 35, 36 years old. And in my 50s, I'm not going to want to go around and bang a bunch of 19-year-old girls. Right now, yes, this is fun, but I'm not going to want this forever. I'm going to want this for a few years. This is a phase I'm going to go through. And then eventually, what will I want? I thought it through and I said, you know what? I'm going to want to settle down again. I'm that kind of guy. I'm going to want to settle down again, but I don't want to be monogamous. I'm going to settle down and deduct the 2 negatives I had in my first marriage, which was A, monogamy, meaning I could only have sex with one woman. So if she said no to sex, I'm without sex. That's never going to work for me long-term. It doesn't work for any man long-term who has a healthy level of testosterone and is normal. And B, I don't want to risk my finances by going through another divorce and losing half my money. I'm not going to do that again. So that's where I came up with the OLTR marriage model, where it's non-monogamous. You can live with a woman and be married to a woman, but you have FBs on the side. You don't have to get permission from her. You have sex with other women whenever you want, as long as they're just FBs. And there's enforceable, and I mean that word, enforceable prenuptial paperwork or cohabitation paperwork that is actually enforceable in the jurisdiction in which you do it. And there's very few of those these days as the Western world continues to collapse and move further left. But anyway, having an enforceable way of protecting my money in case I get a divorce again. And I knew way back then, a decade before I even met Pink Firefly, that I would eventually want this, just not now. So even though I went through my crazy phase and had sex with lots of women as Black Dragon, which I did many years ago, I knew at some point I would settle down again. I would just do it differently, doing X, Y, and Z. I planned it out long term. I always think long term. And that's what men don't fucking do. They just get one-itis or they get horny and they act on that. Long-term success with women means you're always thinking long term. It's that simple. If all you do is make that one change, no matter what you're doing with women in your woman life right now, or what you want to accomplish with your woman life right now, if all you do is sit down with a blank Word document or a piece of paper and map out how that's going to work for you long term, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now, all the way to age 79, and you map that out and you do nothing else differently, that alone will help you. That alone will raise the quality of your relationships, reduce the amount of stress you feel in your woman life, and raise the effectiveness of how effective you are in dating and attracting the type of women that you like. Because now you're thinking long term. Now you're thinking in terms of an integrated, holistic system instead of what I want right now, and I'll figure it out later what I want later when I get older. Terrible idea. It's very similar to the way you view finances, right? What you should do with your finances is say, okay, how do I retire or get to at least a point where I could retire at age 65 or 72 or 82? Am I going to want to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week when I'm 79 years old? Probably not. Now, a few of you maniacs might say yes, I might be one of them, but probably not, right? Right. So that means you have to sit down and figure out how much money do I have to put away now to make sure that when I'm an old fart, I'm covered financially. You have to think long-term with your finances. Women is the exact same thing. I want to get married now, and I'm 37 years old. The divorce rate is over 76%. So knowing that, if I get divorced, how am I going to handle that long-term in my life so I'm happy not only just now, but all the way to when I'm 79, even if I get divorced? How does that work? Or I'm 28 and I want to go bang 100 women. Great, I'm going to do that now. But how will that make me happy long term into my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? That means I'll have to click into different phases. I'll have to have something a little more normal and stable going into my 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever decade you decide. My point is, you map it out yourself. But just by thinking long term, you will most likely avoid all the other problems that all these other men have on the internet who give dating advice, and all the other men you know in your personal life, including probably your dad, your brothers, your buddies, who go through problem after divorce, after breakup, after drama and problem and cheating with women over and over and over again for decades on end, because none of these fucking guys want to think long term. They just want to think with their hearts, I love her, I have one-itis, or their dicks, she's hot, I want to fuck her. It's okay to think in those terms, but as long as you plug them into a long-term model. I have always done this, at least as soon as I became an alpha male 2.0 around in my mid-30s. When I was a young guy, I was just as stupid as most men, and I didn't think any of this long-term. But starting when I hit alpha male 2.0 at age 35 or so, without fail, I'm always thinking long-term in terms of my woman life, including today. I have an OLTR marriage with Pink Firefly. I have several FBs in several different countries, and I know how I'm going to manage that long-term in my 50s, in my 60s, in my 70s. Even if, God forbid, I get divorced from Pink Firefly. I don't want that, but even if that happens, I know what the statistics are. Even if that happens, how do I integrate that long-term? If I don't live in Dubai anymore, if something horrible happens in Dubai in the future and I got to move, how am I going to figure that out with my woman life? If I decide to change the configuration of my FBs, like I've talked about before, having one primary special FB, how will I manage that? I have all this mapped out for the rest of my life to age 80 and even a little stuff beyond 80. And I've always had these plans, and that's why I don't have these problems that most guys have. I don't have to deal with divorces and cheating and fighting and breakups and drama and bullshit. Almost never. Because I think long term. And that's almost like the key to success in terms of long-term happiness of women. Just start thinking long term. And I don't care how old you are. You can be 18, great, start thinking long term. You can be 57, great, start thinking long term. And by the way, if you're an old fucker, if you're well over the age of 50, I'm 50 now. If you're well over the age of 50 and you had never thought long-term up until now, don't use it as an excuse. Start thinking long-term now. If you're 30 and you completely fucked your 20s, which is what most men do, great, you fucked your 20s, start thinking long-term now. That's what I did when I was 35. I pretty much fucked my 20s, or at least a chunk of my 20s and a chunk of my 30s. I said, okay, I learned my lesson. I'm not doing this again. I need to start thinking long-term. And yes, you can certainly project this out to your financial life, your fitness life. One of the reasons I'm working so hard to lose weight is because I'm in my 50s now. I want to live a long life. I need this body fat off to live a long life into my old age. So I have a long-term plan for that. I have a long-term plan for everything. That's one of the reasons I do so well and I'm so happy and I live such a good life. I have lots of resources for doing this. The easiest resource to get access to is my primary book, The Unchained Man, at alphamalebook.com. I have several chapters in that book on how to plan out a mission, vision, long-term goals. I go into detail about that. It's only $7 if you buy the digital version, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Check out that book. I will see you in the next podcast. Have fun. Bye.